Coming up on today's episode of the Salesman Podcast.
You have to train yourself that 100 grand is not enough or 250 grand is not enough. And one of the best things that you can do is get rid of your money. It isn't doing any good sitting around in a bank account anyway. Go invest that stuff, spend it. Put it to work for you, make it work for you.
Hello, Sales Nation. I'm Will Barron, host of the Salesman Podcast, the world's most listened to B2B sales show. If you haven't already, make sure that you click subscribe. And with that, let's meet today's guest.
Hey, what's going on? I'm Ryan Stewman, President and CEO of Phone Sites. And if you need a sales funnel and you're not generating leads online already, go over to phonesites.com and sign up now.
On this episode of the show, with the legend that is Ryan, we're diving into the difference between power and force, how you can become a sales savage, and how you can stop making excuses and really double down on your sales career. So let's jump right in. How much is the average B2B sales professional leaving on the table day to day, year on year, by having the mindset or the attitude of I'm just doing enough, I can just survive on what I'm doing, versus kind of really wanting to get down and really thrive and crush it?
Well, it all starts in your mind, right? And so think about this, like you have to have a hunger for success. And I believe there's, if you go back to school, they teach you about hunters and gatherers, right? And you're either a hunter or a gatherer. And if you're a hunter, the reason why we get hangry, for example, is because we have to be angry to go out and kill something to eat it. That's our primal self inside. And I think you have to have that same primal hunger for success. And most people don't. But here's what happens. There's this virus that's infected our planet. Like it was, if you look at the Bible, they say that it was the apple in the Garden of Eden, right? Like I believe that this planet that we're on was programmed like a microchip or a simulation. And there's a virus that's loose that I call the force of average. And what it does is it convinces you, it's the most deceitful thing on the planet. It convinces you that things are okay, that it's good enough, or it's okay for you, or it's okay to be comfortable, or you've got it nice. It convinces you of those things and satisfies what should be that hunger for success. To so many of us, especially that are 40 years old like I am and older, when our parents told us like $100,000 a year was a lot of money. And so at a young age, we're ingrained in our mind, $100,000 a year is a lot of money. Flash forward, I'm 40 years old. Flash forward, we go to 2019, and all of a sudden we're looking at it, and 100 grand is like almost impossible to survive in London and New York and in LA and Houston, Texas, right? It's like, it just won't cut it after Uncle Sam's gets his part. And if you got child support or anything else, dude, I mean, you're out there. And so you have to train yourself that 100 grand is not enough or 250 grand is not enough. And one of the best things that you can do is get rid of your money. It isn't doing any good sitting around in a bank account anyway. Go invest that stuff, spend it, put it to work for you, make it work for you. So many people, they get comfortable because their bank account or their 401k or whatever's filled, and they can always go borrow against it if they have a bad month. But once you understand that mindset, that you've got to be that hungry, as if you were hungry for food, you have to be that hungry for continued growth and success. If you don't have that mindset, you might just be a gatherer. You may not be a hunter. I'm not trying to insult you. If there's two of us, obviously not everybody can be one. I like to think most salespeople are hunters, but somewhere along the way, the force of average convinces us to settle. And sometimes it's our spouse. Sometimes it's our boss. Sometimes it's the lead ceiling we hit on the commission tables at the company. Sometimes it's exhaustion. But either way, that's what causes it. Now, this is a better question for the audience. Now that I've said that, what I want you guys to think about that are in B&B, how much money have you left on the table? So let's just say in the last 5 years, you've left $1 million on the table because you were okay and the force of average attacked you. What could you be doing with that money right now? $1 million in 5 years. You could be that's 2 or 3 properties that you could have right now, renting out, cash flowing, that's tax deferment that you could have put in an IRA or something of that nature. You could have built a real estate portfolio. You could have leveraged it at a bank and built a $10 million business. But instead, you fall victim to the force of average. So I want you to think about how much you're missing, guys and gals that are out there listening to this, and think about like not letting the force of average attack you. And the way to keep it from attacking you is to stay focused.
If when you were younger, Ryan, 100 grand was, I don't know if that number was kind of pulled out there or just generally it's a round number, so it makes sense. But if that was drilled into you as that's a lot of money, to give the audience context on you now and the Ryan that we're having the discussion with, what would be a lot of money for you right now? What's that kind of number or ceiling or kind of figure in your head?
So my goal is 10 million a year for 2019. We came pretty close to it last year, but didn't quite hit it. So just stuck with it till I hit it. This year we'll most likely pass that between all the companies that I run. But it was hard for me to go from 500 grand because I don't have that many bills. You know what I mean? Like I don't. I invest most of my money. I don't have a whole lot of bills. So, making $500,000 a year is a lot of money to me. Making $1 million a year, fuck, I can't spend it all, right? I can invest it. I'm pretty good at investing it at this point. Making $5 million a year is, dude, I paid off my bills 3 years ago. Like, what am I? And so, constantly finding new things to do. Like I just hired a CEO for my company so that I can be freed up to do the right things and he can run all the operations and stuff on the back end. So making those tweaks, but also again, I don't have $5 million sitting around in a bank account. That would be ridiculous, right? I got 7 houses and software company that I've invested in that I'm running and employees that I pay and office space that I have. And I mean, it's out there working. We have a loan fund where we loan people money and things of that nature. So I got my hands in a few things working with the money, but for right now, that the next ceiling that I'm going to blast through will be this year, will be 10 million.
So this is something interesting, and I see this as a trend as people who come on the show like yourself, who are perhaps 5-10 years ahead of me as an entrepreneur and the sales side of things that we do with the Salesman Podcast, Sales School, and all that, and also the people who come on the show who are doing 100 million and CEOs of larger organizations, which I'm sure you will be in that kind of that further 10-year period, if that makes sense. The trend I see is, and you said it very clear, of I have very few bills. Is this something that you see separates people that perhaps are on Instagram and are flexing, and perhaps are salespeople? I've seen there's a bunch of YouTubers at the moment that are popping up that work in sales or real estate. They're all buying nice cars, but they don't really talk about the fact that they've paid off their mortgage, that they've got this investment, that they've got this or that. Do you see a trend between people who are long-term successful and who have paid off the bills versus people who look successful and just look successful, who aren't particularly wealthy underneath it all?
Well, I think so there's, first of all, let me preface this with this. There's a million ways to make and save money in America, right? And really in the world, right? I know that we have a lot of international people, but I don't have international business experience. So speaking about America, there's a million ways to wealth here. And so for me, I don't have a paid off mortgage. That really doesn't make sense because, I live in a house that's 7 figures and we put money down on the house to buy it. We mortgaged it with a bank. It's a low cost. It just costs us about $4,000 a month to live here, and so it's not very expensive. And at the same time, if we had to sell it, we have equity in it because we put money down, but it also gives us a tax write-off here. So it doesn't make a whole hell of a lot of sense to pay it off. And let's say I paid $2 million on the house. I could have taken that $2 million and invested it in 5 flip homes instead of just having it sit here debt free. So, I'm not rich enough yet to where those kind of moves are the smart moves for me yet. I think that happens at the $10 million mark. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I'll find out. But I think that's kind of the case. But even Grant Cardone, he still leases the place where he lives. So, like I said, there's a million ways. Some people, it's being debt free. For me, I always carry a mortgage on my personal home, and I always carry a note on my cars. I have great credit, like perfect credit. I've never made a late payment on anything. So I get the lowest rates everywhere. So if I go buy a $200,000 or $300,000 car, doesn't make sense again to spend $300,000 because I'm not gonna drive it $300,000 worth anyway. So I'm gonna finance it, drive it for a year, get some of my money back, have the expense of $500 to $1,000 a month. It's about what it works out to at this point, owning the cars, and I get cool cars, right? So I'm making financial sense of it. At the same time, I'm buying the car secondhand, so I'm not blowing all my money and taking big hits and everything else. So. But those are the only things. I don't have credit card debt, no student loan debt, no loans against any of my businesses, no investors, no anything like that. So, you think my car bills and house bill, and plus, let's say private school for the kids is $15,000 a month. And I just told you the types of dollars we've been making for a long time. Like at some point, you have a watch with diamonds on it. You've fucking had it for 3 years. You don't need another one, and at some point, I don't recommend anybody being completely debt-free like the Dave Ramsey way because there's so much more you can do with your cash. But again, it may change. My buddy Ed Milet, good friend of mine, the guy owns, about $150 million worth of real estate with no mortgage on it. So that's how he feels comfortable. That's his path to wealth. But he also makes in the 9 fucking figures a year. So, it's a little different level up there than it is down here, so.
Let me ask you a better question then. So it's probably a similar question, but now you've outlined that for us and made that clear, it's probably more useful for the audience. Is there a trend between the Ed Milats, you mentioned Grant Cardone as well, is there a trend between these individuals and having good financial literacy, understanding how to use money, versus individuals who are, there's plenty of salespeople that make 100, 200, 300 grand a year. They'll be ton in this audience, but they don't have anything to show for it at the end of the day. So is the better question, successful and super successful people, finance wise, have good financial literacy, and that's perhaps a gap between the two groups?
Well, think about the sports players that, there's Roger Staubach, who is a Cowboys quarterback. He's worth almost $1 billion. He's built the largest commercial real estate firm in the world. I mean, or at least in Texas. I mean, Staubach sells everything around here because he understands financing and banks and how the commercial world happens. And then you've got guys like, what is it right now? Allen Iverson? No, it's not Iverson. It's shoot, man. But he's like homeless and he was like, dude, he made like $100 million in the NBA, but he's like homeless right now. Damn it, I can't think of his name. He played up there for the 76ers. Anyway, so the difference is being financially savvy, and in order really to get that, you just have to take risks. You just got to be willing to lose some money and learn some lessons and learn what to look for next time, or pay smart advisors, which are just going to the same as losing money to protect you on things like a lawyer. I have a friend who's been a realtor for about 15 years. He makes about 250 grand a year, but he's probably worth 15 or $20 million because he's been investing in real estate and holding doors and building this whole machine. And he lives, you look at the guy, you wouldn't think he made 50 grand a year, but he's been building this whole machine behind him. So again, he understands the leverage of, I'll make the sacrifice now and I'll reap the reward later. I lived that life too. I'm 40 years old. Like I said earlier, it wasn't until I was 38 that I bought my first exotic car. 38 years old. It wasn't until I had several years of 7-figure a year income before I bought a house. You know what I mean? Like I leased and everything. I was, right now, if you look, I'm wearing like a $14 shirt from Amazon and some pants my wife bought me. I'm not that guy. You know what I mean? And so, the same thing though, I had to learn what to do with money. I've lost money on supplements. I've lost money on real estate deals, but I gained experience. And I went into it no different than going into the blackjack table at Vegas. It's like, dude, if I win, awesome. It's going to pay good. If I don't, I'll learn a lesson.
And are you wired like that, Ryan? Because I'm wired in that, the saying of kind of burn the ships behind you. When I left my last sales job, when I jumped into this business and selling all the ad space and everything that we do with the likes of Salesforce, LinkedIn, HubSpot, all these huge brands, I literally kind of didn't burn the bridges. Well, I couldn't go back to that company now, put it that way. I'm sure they wouldn't spit on my face in the street, and we left kind of fine. But I definitely made it a point to kind of claim that I would never come back to them and all that kind of stuff, because they wanted me to come back for a while because I was crushing it with the on the territory that I was on. And I still live on the territory, so they were chasing me to come back afterwards. But I had to burn the bridges. So I'm wired like that. I think you're wired similarly, of willing to take risks. Are people wired like that, but they use excuses not to do it? Or are some people very literally on a deep DNA level, is the kind of hunters and farmers?
That's a really good question. I don't know, because I'm not inside other people's heads, and as I've had, one of the biggest issues that I've had to face in the last 5 years is a lot of people have hit me up and said, Stewman, give me a job. I can sell anything, blah, blah, blah. And turns out they were wrong. And I've had to let a lot of people go. And when you let somebody go and you're kind of their hero, and then you've got to fire them or whatever, dude, it causes problems, and it's never their fault. And I'm such an asshole and everything else, but I let those people go in the past because I don't understand how they think. You know what I mean? Like I think there's true hunters and gatherers. You're either out there wired for it or you're just simply not, and the only way that I would suggest maybe you could change that, if you're a gatherer and you want to become a hunter, right? Then you got to get hungry, right? If you were gathering up berries and everything, and one day you said, hey man, I want to go kill shit, right? They're going to be like, well, you got to get mad and hungry for you to kill stuff. And so For me, I've had the boats burned behind me, and we were talking about excuses earlier. I have every excuse not to be here. I mean, let me just give you like the quick 5-minute breakdown of my life since I was 18, right? Sold drugs, died of a drug overdose, went to prison, got out, got a job in a car wash with no money to my name, got offered and recruited into the finance industry, became one of the top loan officers in the country. 2005, police thought I was selling dope, kick in the door, take everything from me. I walk into prison 2 years later, a millionaire. I walk out in 2008, in July 11th of 2008. I walked out with $25 to my name, got a job, making 300 grand a year, not on salary, 100% commission. Did that 2 years in a row. 2010, the feds jerked my financial license. Then didn't have a job, started like doing odds and ends, figuring out stuff on social media and everything else. Then started like getting my groove together, started making $20,000, $30,000 a month again, got divorced, had to give it all away. So like I've had to start over so many times that now I'm like, dude, look, you don't have to burn the boats. You can just put them in reverse. It's okay. I get it. You don't have to burn them anymore. Let's just put them in reverse. We might use the boats again later. How about that, everybody? But I have every excuse why I should have said, well, this isn't for me. But I have that mentality to where I could never just sit back and go, well, I'm just going to experience the life that I was given. Like, I'm going to go get everything I can. I will challenge you to this. This world has everything we could possibly need. Think Amazon, Elon Musk, Warren Buffett. These guys have the resources to send rocket ships to the freaking, not the moon, but like Saturn and Mars and stuff like that, dude. Like, we can have this Skype that we have right now, but nothing under the sun is new. There's not some new element that we might discover something new, but it's been there all along, I promise you. And so think about this. We have abundance on this planet. The only limitations that are set ourselves in what we believe that we're able to achieve in a world full of abundance. Literally, when you open your mind to that understanding, then why wouldn't you want to go out there and get every single thing you can? Because everything you could ever want and more is right here in one place, and it's nothing new. It's just a matter of you getting your hands on as much of it as possible.
Ryan, with all that said, mate, which is more effective? Because I feel like you're a bit of a savage, and I mean that in a real positive way, as in you get on the phone, you'd make things happen. Whereas there's other people where and I get this feedback of, I listened to the podcast, I learned this, this, and this, and I did more of the same, or I did slightly better at this 1, 2, or 3 things. And the more that kind of I grow with what I'm doing, and the more that I hear, and I spend time with people like yourself on the show, it's not more of a little bit. It's just being a savage. That's the best word I could come up with. How do we make that switch from not just I want that new car, I want to feed my family, I want to do this and I'm gonna show that on the phone with how passionate I am, and that's going to come across and translate, and people will because people love that. If you're charismatic on the phone, people get sucked into it and people will buy from you. How do you take that to the next step though? Because I feel you consider other content I've seen you do, and last time we spoke, you're quite calm and collected today, but I feel like you could switch on this like savageness, and again, I mean that in a real positive light, in an instant. How do we find that fire that's probably within most of us, or we'll consider just the hunters now that are listening to the show? How do we find that like spark, and how do we like freaking ignite it?
You got to have something bigger than yourself. Let's talk about Tom Brady. He won his 6th Super Bowl ring yesterday. And do you think that he went into the locker room and he goes, let's go get another ring, guys? I really like the way they look on my hand. You know what I mean? Do you think he went out there and goes, let's go win another game? Right? No, he went in there and he said, let's leave a fucking undemolishable legacy that no one will ever be able to shake, deny, or claim anything against. That will remove all doubt from the world that we are not the best franchise in the history of sports, right? And so he's thinking about, legendary stuff. Same thing for me, man. I'm thinking about my kids, and at this point in the beginning, I'll just be honest with you. I did this shit for money. I had bills to pay. I told you earlier, I don't have many bills left. So at this point, I give away 50 times the stuff that I charge people for. However, and I'm charging less money than I've ever charged before, not because like our products aren't worth any more. I want to help more people. That's my legacy. Every day, somebody's telling me, you saved me from going to prison. You got me a job. You helped me make more money. You changed my life with my family. You saved me from divorce. You saved me from addiction. Like these are the things that every day, because like as salespeople, we weren't born with silver spoons in our mouth, right? Like we're troubled people. We're well known. Like the biggest shows that have ever been made of movies of salespeople are drugs and alcohol abuse and hookers and everything else. And I'm not saying we're all that way, but a lot of us have been there. And I'm not judging, but I know that the legacy that I'm leaving is not just like a money, and not just like we won't know how much Tom Brady money when he dies. We won't know how much he's worth, nor will we care. We'll just know that he left a legacy and was the best at what he did, undeniably. 17 years, 9 appearances, 6 wins, right? That's unreal. So I'm doing the same thing for my life. What you've got to do is you got to think of something bigger, right? Like go get behind a charity, right? Go get behind a church or an organization or a religion, whatever it is that you want that's bigger than you, right? Fund a mission for your kids. Like do whatever it is that you can do that's bigger than you so that A, you don't feel guilty for having the money, right? And B, it's going to take you working your ass off to make that thing bigger than you come true. And I can tell you, 10 million is just the number because we got to have numbers to run our business. But I know the amount of lives that 10 million reflects, and that's the game changer for me.
Because I felt this before, I'm much better at it now from dealing with pretty much being psychotherapied on the show a few times. Why do people feel guilty about money? Because I feel like this is an underlying excuse that people have, but then they call it other things and they translate it into, and it manifests itself in other ways. But at a deep level, Ryan, why do people feel guilty about having money, earning money, and having success with it?
Well, most of us are from those kind of neighborhoods where we're the only ones that really made any money there. And so, they use the lines like, oh, you think you're fancy and all this. And then plus the stuff that we were told young, money doesn't grow on trees. Most of our parents weren't rich. And what we equate subconsciously at a young age is that money equals responsibility. And many of us just aren't very responsible. And guilt comes along with that because you're not responsible for it, but you could tend to do. I had a client one time tell me, he's like, I know I'm going to the strip club. I know I'm blowing my money on this, but I can't seem to fucking quit. And he's like, but I'm making all this money. So I'm like justifying it. But then I feel guilty the next morning when I look at my bill, and it's just simply the responsibility, like I said, my money's not sitting in just a bank account. It's sitting in real estate and in software development teams and in payroll and all these other things. That's a lot of responsibility. I got a shit ton of people that work for me. I have a shit ton of clients that depend on me. You know what I mean? And more money is definitely more responsibility, but you're better equipped to handle it. And a lot of people, till they make that shift, don't get to that level to really understand that.
So it seems like there's multiple routes to solve some of these issues that we're talking about here, Ryan. One of them is to kind of man up, get through these excuses, break through them. Another one, though, and maybe you're kind of hot on this, seems to be discipline. And it seems like if you can have enough discipline over enough time, nothing else matters. Is that fair to say?
Yeah,
it's not sexy to say that, is it? Though.
No, I mean, there's been plenty of times where I've woke up and been like, shit, is this really what I want to do? Who can I find to replace me? But you have to be disciplined. I live and die by a calendar, and I'm on a semi routine every day. I travel a lot, so it's hard to keep up with a perfect routine. But, you have to be. And there's plenty of times where I thought I wasn't going to make it, or, I felt like I was wasting my time, or, I was failing here and there, just like anybody else. But you got to be disciplined enough to push through that shit too. Everybody quits. Few of us stick around long enough to really win.
And because that was exactly what I was going to ask you. I know you've got a bunch of podcasts and content as well. It's been going for a long time, longer than or similar to what we've been doing here with the Salesman Podcast. I've seen so many podcasts come, go. We've just hit over like 1 million views on YouTube, about 25 million audio downloads, 20,000 subscribers on YouTube. It was like 21, 22 as we record this. And people ask me all the time, what's the secret? How's it growing? And there is no secret for us. It's literally just been constant content, and I wish it was more sexy than this, but constant content, and our downloads every month goes up. How many thousands it goes up every month, and it's just a straight line. No matter how much we spent on doing Facebook video ads when we were working with HubSpot last year. I think we were spending like 20,000 a month on ads to kind of grow our show and kind of aligned it with their brand and different things on that front. Made no difference, just straight line. And every month our revenue goes up just in this straight line. And now, I've talked about this on the show before, so I sell the ad space on the podcast. The ad space is sold out for 2019. There is no more ad space. I'm now hopefully going to be doing a deal for 2020 and 2021. 2021, yeah, that's right. Just to tie everything together. And I'm looking for, this is one of the reasons why I'm doubling down on the sales school. We were touching on it kind of before we clicked record, a little software development that we're doing. So I can start selling B2B to sales managers. So I'm actually selling a product. Anyway, I'm going kind of off the rails here. Long story short, the only thing that I've ever done for more than 2-3 years is this podcast. I've never had a sales role in one organization for 3 years. And the more and more I think about all of this, the dumber it is that I didn't just stay perhaps in the last organization I was in, where you could easily do multiple six figures, high six figures by just a little bit of work. That might have been the smartest move to become financially free, wealthy, because there isn't the responsibility of hiring people. There isn't all this faffing around. And if entrepreneurship wasn't so cool and sexy, and it's kind of dying off a little bit now, that trend, I perhaps would have stayed in that role. I'm in far better off than where I am now, all by just being consistent. So how much of success in general, Ryan, do you think comes down to, with this long-winded question that I'm throwing at you here, comes down to just consistency?
All of it, again, it's, everybody quits. If you don't stay in the game, you for sure won't win. And, this is the longest I've ever done like anything. So 2012, I started hardcorecloser.com. 2011, I started podcasting. 2009, I started making videos. So somewhere around whichever time you want to count that I picked up, I've been doing this shit almost every single day. And I can tell you, come 2013, and I wasn't a millionaire yet, like all these info products promised me, and the money that I am making, I'm having to dump back into the business, and I don't have my private jet and Ferrari like all these people had promised and everything else. There was a time where I even went and took a job for 6 months when my ex-wife got pregnant with my oldest son, because I needed insurance, so there's been setbacks along the way. But guess what I did every Wednesday while I worked at the car dealership? I recorded my podcast in my car from Bluetooth with an automatic dial-in thing. Anyway, it was complicated shit. I probably could have made it easier, but bottom line is, I stayed consistent. When people log into Facebook, I'm just one of the channels that they're surfing, no different than a remote control. I'm just one of the channels they're surfing. They know they can go to my channel because there's consistently new stuff. Same on Facebook, same on Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, everything. And they know that I've been there for a long time. Like, you ever show up at a sales job, especially in B2B, the dude that's worked there for 20 years is like the top producer. Why? Because at this point, everybody that wasn't working there has quit along the way. And he's been the one person that they can consistently rely on, and he's been in it long enough, so he must be an expert. He hadn't moved around. He hadn't switched things. And so that's the way I look at it. I didn't get to be one of the top guys in the world at doing what I do just overnight. It took 10 freaking years of consistency. And it's not easy. Most days, I don't feel like doing it. But I act my way into a feeling, because I'll never feel my way into action.
How do you act your way, and we'll wrap up with this, right? How do you act your way into getting motivated for this? Because I feel like this is the difference between in anything, an amateur and a pro. A pro, whether it's football, whatever it is, goes on the pitch, whether they've got a cold, whether they feel like shit, it doesn't matter. They get on there, they take a rollicking from the manager in the locker room at halftime. They go back on, they run till the legs won't carry them anymore. Whether they win or lose, they're training the next day. An amateur, in the UK we have Sunday League football. If it's raining, half the matches don't kind of get to play because people go, I won't bother, or it's cold, and obviously it's not a huge priority for them. But that's the difference between the amateur and the professional. So how do you, because I suffer from this sometimes, so I'll take this on board myself. When you don't feel great, when there's something going on in your personal life, when there's other things going on and you just can't be bothered, you start getting that inner voice that goes, you know what, Ryan, you're frigging crushing it this year, mate. Getting 10 million in revenue, you've got your team, you've just hired a CEO. I deserve a day off. How do you turn that voice off and just sit down and do the work?
Well, the problem is most people are looking to be comfortable, but we weren't created to be comfortable. We were created to sleep on rock floors and caves and on grass patches and in trees. Like we're primates. That's really the way that we were created. But for some reason, we've sold ourselves on this idea of being comfortable. And I know this: if you don't get uncomfortable, the world will not reward you. There are no rewards inside the comfort zone. So for me, I've been on the road for 2 weeks. Okay, this one's going to go a little long, so I'm about to go crazy on you here. I've been to Ed Milet's house, Kent Clothier's event in Spoke. I've been to the Bahamas, got raided by the Department of Homeland Security when I got back from the Bahamas. Then I went to the 10X Growth Con and then just came back yesterday in time to unpack my bags, get my ass to the office this morning. And I woke up this morning, the last thing that I wanted to do was go to the gym. The last thing. I don't like it on a good day. I damn sure don't like it when I'm tired. And I could have laid there. And the longer I'd have laid there, the more I'd have had reasons and excuses to convince myself that it was okay not to go. Because they start as soon as I think about it. Got to go to the gym. Okay, man, tell him you're just tired. You've been on the road. He's not going to buy that. It's got to be better. Okay, tell him you're sick. Right? Tell him you're hungover. Right? Don't lie to him. Tell him you're hungover. Right? And I start thinking, I'm like, you know what? The easiest thing to do is just to get up and go. When I say act, I mean literally. You need to make a sales funnel. Don't stare at it forever. Just start clicking buttons. You know what I mean? Nobody's going to see the monstrosity you're going to build the first time around anyway. So just do it. And you don't feel like having the conversation with one of your employees or with your boss. Just do it anyway. It's almost like I was listening to this guy talk about the 3-second rule. If you see a chick, you got to go talk to her within 3 seconds. Right? You see a hot chick in the bar, you got 3 seconds to take action, because if you don't take action the first 3 seconds, you'll talk yourself out of it. It's the same thing in our lives. So the easiest way to become an action taker is to, first time that excuse pops up, show it who's boss, So I didn't want to get out of bed this morning, but I damn sure did. The other thing is, and again, that's getting out of your comfort zone. That's where the reward starts happening. The second thing that I want to share with you guys, and we can close on this, is the difference between power and force. So in sales, many of us try to force our way into sales. In life, the same way. We're cold calling people. We're banging on doors. We're belly to belly. We're bumping into people, giving them our business card at Starbucks. We're, sneaking into office buildings and meetings and all the things that we have to do, forcing things, spamming email lists, just trying to force a sale to happen. Well, force will get the job done. Force will make you money. You go and you force your way in, finally followed up enough. But force will also, man, you're only going to hit your head against the wall so many times before it starts to get soft. And when you can make the transition from force to power, and I'll explain the difference here in a second, your world changes. So when you think about power, I explain what force is. Force is knocking on the doors, cold calls. Power is making boss moves, because bosses are powerful people. So boss moves are starting a podcast, writing PR, right? Getting interviewed on other shows, getting people to write articles about you, getting influencer pages on social media to mention you, right? Those are power moves. And what those power moves do is they start to attract, because that's what power does. It attracts. It starts to attract the people that you want to do business with, versus going out there and forcing just anyone to do business with. You'll actually attract the best people to do business with, because you'll be operating from a space of power. So many people are out there trying to force things to happen, but a king doesn't go take things by force himself, right? What a king does is he steps into power and lets force do the work for him. So when you're out there and you're going to do your marketing, you're going through your sales pitch, ask yourself, is this a power move or a force move, right? Is this power or force? Because power moves, again, attract. So think, is what I'm doing, this Facebook post, this article, this video, this podcast, whatever it is you're doing, is this going to get the attention and attract the segment of the market that I want, versus trying to close them, like get in them and handle their objections and argue, quote unquote, argue and everything else with them? versus them just saying, hey, you know what? Seen some things, got a few questions. If you answer them right, you can have my money.
Is this something you've come up with, Ryan? Because I've never heard it put it like that before.
Yeah, it's all me, man.
Because what you're describing is what I'm literally experiencing at the moment of, at first, and obviously the audience size was smaller, so it's more difficult to sell well, maybe it wasn't, because the price of the sponsorships of the podcast are always relative to the number of downloads. So maybe I'm making an excuse there of why it was so difficult at the beginning. But now I've got more inbound, as I mentioned earlier in the show. We've sold out for the year, and it's from having a bigger audience, more people want to be involved, and it's attracting people to it. We've got way bigger guests reaching out to us to want to come on the show, and it gets easier. And again, I think a lot of this is, and tell me if I'm wrong here, but it seems like to pull from both sides, it's to have consistency over a decade, and then to make yourself uncomfortable and take risks that perhaps other people aren't willing to go. Is that the smart strategy here? Is that a good conclusion for the show, perhaps, of to pull from opposite directions like that?
It's pretty simple, man. You know, if there's one thing I've learned, and I've learned from all my very wealthy friends, it's that simplicity is key. You know, the people out there trying to overcomplicate things all the time, when it is the simplicity of staying dedicated and consistent with something, and then, you know, like in my case, making power moves, you know?
Well, I wish you'd tell me that 5 years ago, and I wish you'll probably tell me tomorrow, because a lot of this will be overcomplicated by the time I think about it and have a shower later on, Ryan. With that, mate, I've asked you this before. I'm going to ask you it again. Something I ask everyone that comes on the show, and that is, if you could go back in time and speak to your younger self, what would be the one piece of advice you give him to help him become better at selling?
Man, I think my younger version of me was probably a better salesman than I am. I had to try harder. You know what I mean? Like now I have the authority and the credibility, and you either want to do something with us or you don't, you know. But my younger guy was a bigger salesperson. But if I could go back and tell my younger self anything, it'd be the same thing I said on the last show. It'd be like, hang in there. You're going to turn out to be a bad motherfucker one day. Be thankful for all this shit, and just know that you're actually going to get through it. So enjoy some of it, you know?
Love it. Well, with that, Ryan, tell us about phone sites, and then tell us about anything else you think is relevant about from the 500 companies that you run, mate.
Yeah, so phone sites would be a big deal for this community. You know, one of the things that you can do that's a power move is create a website that collects data. Data is the most expensive and valuable resource on the planet right now. It's more valuable than oil. If you look at the top 4 guys that are the richest people in the world, we got Zuckerberg. He made his money from data. Jeff Bezos, he made his money from data. If you like this, would you also like to buy this, right? Warren Buffett, he's got data from the shipping. He owns the railroads, the furniture stores, the real estate, the car business, the housing. I mean, dude, the insurance. Like, he's got the data to monetize that stuff. And you look at Bill Gates, they're not selling computers anymore. They're selling their data to all these companies, right? So data is the most expensive thing. If any of those 4 guys decide to get into your business, you're in trouble. And the best bet that you can have as an exit plan is to sell your book of data to these companies when they come in to take over. The best way to collect that data is through something called a sales funnel, which is a very simple website with a call to action asking them to enter whatever information you request of them, name, email address, phone number, or whatever the case may be. Now, you might be thinking, website, dude, this has got to be hard. I tried it with GoDaddy and Wix, and it was a pain in the ass. That's not the case. Like I said earlier in the show, I believe in simplicity. And so phone sites is the easiest, simplest, fastest, best way that you can build one of these websites. And we even have a training program that shows you how to do everything, but really you wouldn't even have to watch it. You can just click a few buttons and make it happen, because it makes sense in real time, drag and drop. You can use your phone, your desktop, everything else. And to prove it to you, I'll give it to you for free. You can go over there and make your first few funnels absolutely for free. Just go over to phonesites.com. You don't even have to enter your credit card. You can just go over there, sign up, check our software out. And man, once you create one of these sales funnels, sharing it on Facebook, on LinkedIn, sending it to your email list to start collecting that data and monetizing it, who's interested in what, it's a complete game changer. Second thing that I like to say to you guys is every day I do a podcast called Rewire, and it's 3 to 5 minutes, real quick. And I should be the first thing you listen to every morning. I talk about the wisdom from my experiences, the mindset shifts that I have, and occasionally business stuff, but mostly mindset things. The idea is to program your mind and rewire your mind first thing in the morning when you get up and you're most vulnerable. Let that be the first decision that you make every day. You can find it on iTunes, Spotify. Best place to get it is at hardcorecloser.com. That's my blog. There's tons of articles, videos, all my podcasts are there. and everything else. So phone sites and then the Rewire podcast over at hardcorecloser.com.
Good stuff, Ryan. Well, I'll link to all of that in the show notes to this episode over at salesman.org. And with that, Ryan, a genuine pleasure as always, mate. Congrats on all the success. Look forward to seeing you progress moving forward. And I want to thank you again for joining us on the Salesman Podcast.
Thanks for having me.